I love how, I'm sitting here, Vince D'Addario, Sean Steiners, as we start this show on on another news breaking day, the news that we didn't expect we would
Seriously.
get. I guess we'll get to that here in a minute. I love how I get accused of being the one that constantly brings up a certain topic when every other comment in the chat has to do with said certain topic. And I'm the one who's being finger pointed as, oh, Sean's going to bring this up. And you notice I'm not saying it. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of saying it. I will sit here all night and I'll talk around it if I have to.
I mean, it's on your shirt. Kind of.
That's true. The state is. Anyway.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here tonight.
Yeah.
Glad everyone pays attention to the topic. Jesse is the one who would be,
yes,
dour
true.
sourpuss more than me. I'll just say that when the schedule came out at the start of the season, Jesse pointed at this game and wanted to go to this, to yesterday's game. And as it turned out, there was a Notre Dame women's basketball game. So obviously I couldn't get away from that. I was actually floating the idea of going to Dallas last week to see the Cowboys-Eagles game, but he had a college buddy, a teammate of his from college, came into town from Colorado that he hadn't seen in a while. So he had to do that instead. I was ready to fly to Dallas last week, and we would have seen a win.
I bet you were.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the news that everybody wants to talk about, though, or sort of wants. I don't even know where everyone's heads are going to be. I've got an idea of where the majority of people's heads are, but I mean, Vince, it's just another example of life comes at you pretty fast. And, if the last two off seasons have taught us nothing else, that, things happen when you least expected it. Nobody expected Brian Kelly to bolt when he did 2 years ago. Nobody expected Tommy Rees to leave Notre Dame for Alabama last year.
Yeah.
And here we are, less than 2 weeks away from the Sun Bowl. Gerad Parker's a head coach, Troy State. I mean, that is like the last thing that I thought would happen is we were going to be hearing an announcement that Gerad Parker is the head coach of a Division I football school. But here it is. What was your initial reaction to this?
Oh, my buddy texted me first, and he's like, "Is it true about Parker?" And I'm thinking to myself, who are you talking about? Like because there's a Parker that plays, high school. Like there's other Parkers in my life. You know what I mean? One of my bosses is named Parker at the school. Like I was like, who, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And then I thought about it for 30 seconds and I'm like, oh, so I jump on the board and there it was. And I was like, oh crap. Shocked. Like this was so far outside of anything I anticipated happening. And the outcome that took place, like I knew Marcus Freeman wasn't going to cut ties with Gerad Parker. Like that wasn't going to happen. He was going to get another year, went out and got Riley Leonard, like all these different things were happening. And they were pretty much at the behest of Gerad Parker. Like these, transfers that came in.
Yeah.
Most of those, by the way, most of those are offensive guys. Who do you think had a big hand in getting those guys to come?
Yeah.
It's Gerad Parker, right? So this is the last thing, that I anticipated for sure, because I was not anticipating it in any way. And then it occurred to me, it's like, okay, hold on a second. Let me back the train up here. Is this a situation like other coaches that, they're getting pushed out and like, here's a nice soft landing spot for you.
We'll help you find a spot kind of thing. This will actually be a promotion. And
right. And that has happened
before, and other people have brought it up. And
that has happened. And
it's fair to say because of all the, just the venom directed at Gerad Parker with the way things went.
Absolutely.
Completely.
But I've been assured by multiple people that is not the case. This is a step up for Gerad Parker because this team is good.
Some stuff that I didn't know initially, but Pete Thamel from ESPN, who was one of the, I think Irish Illustrated had this first from what I understand, and then Pete Thamel came second.
Okay.
But in any case, Pete Thamel, I've seen some of the things that he has said about this. I've read the story that he had.
Okay.
Interesting connections to this job
Mm-hmm.
that, again, like Gerad Parker, Troy, what's the connection there? Well, the athletic director at Troy, his name is Brent Jones. He brought in John Summerall last year. Summerall has since he's moved on to Tulane. Before that, Neil Brown was the head coach at Troy. Does Neil Brown ring a bell? He's the head coach at West Virginia. Summerall, Brown, and Gerad Parker all played together at Kentucky. So you've got a connection there. And now you've got this line basically of three guys all connected to each other and an athletic director who has made the last two hires at Troy. Like when Summerall went to Tulane, you can bet that he had good things to say about Gerad Parker. It sounds, just because of the way this is all kind of interconnected. And Neil Brown, of course, who, both played with Parker and was Parker's boss for a couple of years at West Virginia.
Yeah.
The references were good there as well. So it's like from the outside in the initial reaction, it
like
definitely
Troy
like a leap to go from
Yeah.
no offensive coordinator to Troy, but it all kind of makes sense. And then what Samuel is saying, that what some of the things that Troy liked about him, high energy coach who brings a wide array of experience. And Troy officials were also attracted to his background as an offensive coordinator and a recruiting coordinator as well. Because again, you're talking about a much smaller school. And I mean, you know how Parker is. He's got that personality, man. Like, if nothing else, Gerad Parker's got that personality and he can talk to people, he can connect with people and and all that stuff. And, look, Troy is located in the
Alabama, baby.
That's right. That twang that Gerad Parker had. It's not going to stand out down there the way it stands out up here at Notre Dame.
No doubt about it. That's the first thing I thought, because I knew that they played in a conference with like Louisiana Tech and like or something like, it's all a bunch of Southern schools basically, right? It's a Sun Belt, I think. And it's like, okay, he fits that because you could tell that's where he's from. He's from that region. And so that obviously was a fit. And then you look at Troy, right? I think they're 23-4 over the last couple of years, or 3 years, or 2 years, or whatever it happens to be, right?
Yeah, they were really good actually the last couple of years.
This is a successful program that he's walking into, and it's a Division I program that he's walking into. So this is not a situation where, hey, why don't you go be the head coach of UMass or something like that. This is a step up. This is a Division I head coaching job. And so, they came after him. I believe what I heard was like Thursday, Friday area, and things kind of escalated pretty quickly. And he became the target and he took the job, and, good for him. So it's definitely a promotion. This is not hey, you're not doing the job at Notre Dame, we're going to find you a soft landing spot. This is a promotion for Gerad Parker. The timing isn't fantastic 2 days before signing day, but the one thing about this 24 class, and I know a lot of people are worried about that, is that they're solid. Like, this 24 class is absolutely solid for Notre Dame, not Gerad Parker.
But the difference, again, like you had Tommy Rees leave last year, but that was like early February, I think, by the time that happened, or even mid-February by the time that happened. So obviously the signing class was, that was almost 2 months old at that point. And you're right, now. And so instead of having everybody actually signed on the dotted line like Tommy Rees had last year, Gerad Parker and Marcus Freeman, you do have a class that's 2 days away from being signed, or at least a day and a half now at this point. So they're, but I think you're right. I think that all signs point to, things are locked down. But again, similarity last year, the fact that Tommy Rees brought in Sam Hartman, and as we've talked about, he brought in his quarterback for his system, and it looked like Gerad Parker was bringing in his quarterback for his system, Riley Leonard. And now, kind of what happens as Notre Dame goes forward here, you do have a very specific kind of quarterback that whoever is going to be the offensive coordinator is going to be coaching now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, the pieces are all in place. Obviously, I would be more worried about, and I'm not worried, but I would say I would be more worried about the transfer guys that are coming in and their commitment as opposed to the 24 guys and their commitment, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because Gerad Parker was directly involved in bringing in these transfers. He was involved in the 24 class, but he's only been the offensive coordinator for 10 months, right? So it's a little bit of a different scenario as far as the recruits are concerned. Again, I'm not worried. I would just say I would be more worried about those guys than the 24 class.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know there's some people who are more than happy to see Gerad Parker go, right?
Yeah.
No, I know.
Right.
Like Matt is saying, Troy, let's not run a lot of play action. Look, and I've already seen a lot of darts being, like all this different stuff and, finger pointing with the ups and downs of the offense and all that different kind of stuff. But look, a lot of people wanted to see Tommy Rees go last year. And look how that worked out. Tommy is playing, he's coaching for a national championship now. He's in the college football playoff. And things didn't start off perfectly, obviously, in Alabama, but they got the ship righted with all that was going on with the quarterback. They only lost one game, and that was to another playoff team.
Yeah.
So as far as this, my point is, there have already been a lot of people who are said they were more than glad to see Tommy leave last year, and then things were happening this year, and there was definitely some seller's remorse. Like they would gladly have taken Tommy Rees back at some point this year. And as to what's going on here, Marcus Freeman fired the wide receivers coach a couple of weeks ago. The offensive coordinator is now gone as a head coach, so anyone on that side of the ball who Sam Hartman is gone now too. So anyone on that side of the ball who's got any culpability for whatever the issues were, they're all gone.
This is true.
Right? And so now there is going to be a new search. There'll be a new offensive coordinator, 3rd in 3 seasons next year. And one way or the other, we're going to find out, it's going to take us a little while, but we're going to find out. Is it the offensive coordinator who's been responsible for some of this? Is it the head coach for, like pressing his thumb down on the scale in some certain situations? We're going to find out, because if the same trends that we saw continue, that we saw in some places this year and the year before that, for that matter, we're going to have a much different idea of maybe where some of that goes. And I'm not saying that it is on him, but I'm just saying with a 3rd offensive coordinator coming in as many years, if we see some of the same concerns, then I think that it does point, more upward than to who the coordinator or whatever position coaches happen to be.
It's hilarious to me, the response, I guess, to people, because as soon as they name who the new guy is going to be, there's going to be people bitching and moaning about that.
That's right. I wanted this guy.
Right. Because the names that people are coming up with are ridiculous. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll just say it. The potential Broyles Award winner is not coming to Notre Dame for a lateral move. Okay. It's not happening. So people need to put that out of their minds. Like, and a guy who used to be offensive coordinator here at Notre Dame is not going to come back to be offensive coordinator at Notre Dame.
Look, Mike Denbrock, Texas A&M wanted him, and he got a big raise and a 3-year contract extension.
Mike Denbrock's not coming, folks.
That's what I'm saying. He's not coming back to Notre Dame.
Not
after getting the money that he just got at LSU and the contract.
Right.
Because what's that mean? That means buyout. Right, that means a big buyout, right?
Correct.
So, we can just say that's not happening, right
not
away,
happening.
unless
it's not happening.
Unless they go out and get some more donors, to chip in, to throw some money in the hat for whatever the buyout for whatever coordinator happens to be.
I mean, look, no one would like Mike Denbrock on this staff as the offensive coordinator more than me, but realistically, it's not happening.
Well, he's also best friends with BK,
and he's very happy down there. I can assure you of that.
Because remember, the reason that Mike Denbrock had to go to Cincinnati was because Brian Kelly had to fire him. He was told, because that was after 2016. Denbrock wanted to stay. Brian Kelly wanted Denbrock to stay here at Notre Dame, but he was told that he had to, hire all new coordinators. That was the condition for Brian Kelly to keep his job here at Notre Dame. And so what happened when Brian Kelly moved along to LSU? I mean, he wanted to take his offensive coordinator from Notre Dame with him, but that coordinator decided to stay at Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman. So he went back to one of his oldest best friends in the coaching business, Mike Denbrock, and that's worked out really well. They just had the highest scoring offense in the nation, and there's no way he's coming back here to Notre Dame.
Right. 100%.
I won't say no way, but again, it's going to take a ton of cash if you're going to bring Mike Denbrock in at this point. Yes.
And you're going to have to do more than just convince Mike Denbrock to come back too, because I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say his family enjoys it down there. I'll just say that. And what I will also say is the name that I'm hearing floated around, people should be happy with, very happy with. Okay. So you can say how Notre Dame's going to be cheap or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Notre Dame's not going to go out and, pay any buyout. There's most likely going to be some kind of buyout someplace. I'm just saying.
For sure.
I'm just saying the Denbrock thing, because of a newly signed deal and how much money he's getting, it's unrealistic. And everything else that comes with it. That's just unrealistic right now.
Right. So people need to just relax.
See, Ant wants you to be a jabroni and just start throwing rumors out there.
Not going to happen. That's not what we do. And so,
see,
sorry.
you don't throw names into a public forum, that were given in confidence. That's how sources work.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, look, Brandon, you need to relax. The name I'm hearing is not on the inside. So there you go. So I'll at least throw that out there. He's not. Look, does everybody remember what happened though at the last offensive coordinator search? Like the top guys were not in, they were not guys that were on the staff already. That was not how he wanted to go about it, right? That his top two candidates were outside.
A lot of people have twisted that narrative as if, that's what Marcus Freeman, that's the only direction Marcus Freeman was ever going to go.
Right.
And there's still people who believe the narrative that was pushed out there from the other side about, what the buyout was, who was willing to pay a buyout, who changed their mind or didn't change their mind, all that different bygones at this point, right?
Exactly. And
it's all water under the bridge.
100%.
We have a pretty good idea of, what the actual story was in there, but at the same time, you're absolutely right. There were external candidates right away that Marcus Freeman wanted to go out and get, and he was unable to go out and get them for whatever reason, for whatever the actual reason turned out to be. He was unable to get them. And so he made Gerad Parker the offensive coordinator.
Right. There were at least 3 guys that they vetted completely that were all external candidates that were on the final list, right? That last time. So there's going to be a nationwide search. It's going to be a whole thing. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, well, these are the guys I got to choose from. This is what I'm going to end up doing. So, so that everybody just needs to take it down a notch. It's going to be about a week, I would imagine, before you're going to hear anything specifically. And there was a lot of blame to go around last time as to why it didn't go well.
Right.
Okay. Search.
Joe said at the end of the day, Notre Dame wasn't coming up with the moolah. I don't disagree with that, Joe, but it's the version that the official version that you get from Notre Dame is a different story.
Yeah.
That's my point. Like, I agree with what you're saying. Notre Dame wasn't going to pay that, but that's not what Notre Dame wants you to believe.
This is true. No, this is true. And they wouldn't even probably have gotten into conversations with that person if they knew all of everything up front. How's that sound?
Right.
So, and it wouldn't even have come up as an issue, So again, if everybody just lets it play out, I think they're going to be happy at the end of the day. Not going to make everybody happy, but from an X's and O's standpoint, I feel like people are going to be happy. Like, that's how I feel.
So John Gruden is coming to town, right?
Yep, absolutely. Clay grad. This is a perfect opportunity. Clay is closing. And
his dad used to coach at Notre Dame. I don't know if you knew that, Vince.
Oh, I heard that once or twice, that might have been the case.
Because John Gruden is going to come be a college offensive coordinator. Not even a college head coach. He's going to come be a college offensive coordinator because he once lived here in his life.
Right. Yes, exactly. This is my favorite comment so far from Sloppy Joe. He said, on the bright side, there's going to be less complaining in the chat until next season. Oh, if only that were true.
Now, there's a lot of time to go until next season, my man.
That is not
There's a lot of time to go. A lot
there
of
will
time.
Absolutely be complaining. So, but it's
got
okay.
9 months, bro. Like,
People
we're going to be here.
People are passionate. I love the passion. It is all good. And speaking of jabronis, Sean, I want to bring this up because
we're not going to go down to Tommy DeVito Road, are we?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Although they're jabronis too, but that's different conversation, different kind of jabroni. But they Notre Dame announced their 4 captains for the bowl game today, which I thought was an interesting move since 3 of their captains have opted out. So they elevated 3 other guys to the captainship, one of which was Javonte Jean-Baptiste.
Right.
And he retweeted Notre Dame's tweet about those captains. And he's like, my sources say that I'm playing or something like that. I was like, yeah, that was, I love that.
Bravo.
I loved it. That was
bravo, JJB. Like,
that was awesome.
Last game at Notre Dame going out on top. Like, that was a walk-off right there. I wish the game was tomorrow.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. Because the jabroni said that there was no way that he was going to, they said he was going to opt out and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. So, touche, my friend. That was awesome.
Very well played.
Had to bring that up. Had to bring that one up.
Yep.
So,
Joe said he's happy for Gerad Parker. No coach really aspires not to be a head coach. I mean, it's a good, it's a good move for him. Like, yeah, I mean, there are some guys I think
like Harry Hiestand. Harry Hiestand never wanted to be a head coach.
Right.
But other than that, yes, the majority of people do.
But, look, this specific job he is going to, because of the cupboard is not bare. As you mentioned, they did well over the last couple of years. I actually have the record of what Summerall went 23-4 there in the last 2 years, 16-2 in the Sun Belt over the last 2 years. Now he's going on to Tulane, and Neil Brown before him, West Virginia as well. So like there's a good track record here with this program. And if Gerad Parker is able to keep this success going, he's got a very good chance of potentially being a Power 5 guy, or at the very least, like a higher level Group of 5 guy within a few years, just the way this has gone at Troy in recent years. And Troy's turned out a lot of pretty good talent there for a school of its size.
I feel like this is a great move for Gerad Parker for all the reasons that you just said. It's obviously kind of an entry-level head coaching job. It's the lower end of Division I, but they've had so much success, and they've got a track record of sending the head coach to the next level, right? To the next job. And so if he can be good here, he could be good at the next level. And then the next level, if he can continue, to build those programs and be better and be better. I mean, very infrequently is it that somebody comes in as a head coach into a program that's 23-4. I mean, usually you're rebuilding something because the guy got fired. In this case, the guy moved on to a quote unquote better job. And so he's leaving a really great program. And Gerad Parker's like, yes, sir. I mean, so I just feel like this is a great first head coaching job because you're not in a complete rebuild. You're in got to sustain it, obviously, which is difficult all by itself, but it's just different. You've got support. You've got this, you've got that. So I just feel like this is a great move for Gerad Parker.
I'll just say, I won't say the name of the team that he played for in the NFL or teams, but, people who know who I'm talking. DeMarcus Ware played for Troy. I'll just say that. Notable Troy alum.
There you go.
DeMarcus Ware.
Troy.
Yes.
The press conference is tomorrow at 1:00 Eastern. If anybody wants to, tune in and hear that Southern drawl for the last time as a Notre Dame fan. I did see that today. So I like those introductory press conferences. I always like to see if they win the press conference. You know what I mean? So I'll probably tune into that at some point.
At least Father David knew who I was talking about or what I was talking about. David saw it. David Carpenter saw it as well.
Here's a
He's
good
Cowboys
question.
fan, so.
Here's a good question from Berkshire Yank.
Yeah, I was just about to put that up there.
Perfect. He says, do you see anyone on the staff following Parker to Troy?
I wouldn't think so. Because, I mean, who do you have? You have, I mean, basically, I don't know. Like, maybe you see, like some of the analysts or
graduate assistant,
maybe a position coach who might have a chance to be a coordinator. So, I'm not exactly sure, how, maybe some of that'll work, but I would think kind of those, like the analyst type guys probably have the best chance, like Dylan McCullough. He wants to be a head coach at some point in his career. Would it help his career from where he is, the profile that he's got at Notre Dame, being the running backs coach at Notre Dame? And I'm just using this as an example. I obviously don't know that, would it help him if he becomes offensive coordinator at Troy?
Right.
Like, how does that elevate his career at this point compared to being the running backs coach with a much higher profile still at Notre Dame?
I don't think it helps him, in this specific instance, right? I think that you could see a guy like, whoever the kid was who's the graduate assistant that's going to coach the tight ends in the bowl game, that kind of a kid. You know what I mean? Like maybe he gets his first shot at being a full-time assistant. You know what I mean?
Caleb Carbine.
There you go.
Is his name. Senior analyst on the offensive staff. He's going to coach the tight ends.
Yeah.
I had neither. And of course, we didn't even mention it. Gino Guidugli is going to be the offensive coordinator for the Sun Bowl and call the plays in the Sun Bowl as well. But then Caleb Carbine, senior analyst for the offensive staff, becomes the tight ends coach over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, no. So I think you could see maybe somebody like that, but nobody that I don't see anybody that's an actual position coach at Notre Dame right now following Parker. I don't see that being the case because I don't think that that's a step in the right direction. It's a lateral move at best. So
what do you think about this? Bernie, terrible move by Parker. Notre Dame's head coach was a coordinator for Notre Dame. Troy is 3 steps backwards.
I disagree wholeheartely with that because he's a coordinator at Notre Dame. He's not taking a step back by taking on head coaching in Division I. So at a successful program, by the way. So no, I do not see that as a step back by any stretch of the imagination. No.
Yeah. Mr. 2.0 asks about Fred Hale, who was the interim strength coach after Matt Balis stepped down. I mean, it's a possibility. Part of that also depends on who they've got down there. I mean, I think part of that is sort of that, the extra parts of the staff. There's a lot of interviews that Parker's going to have to do with them to get a feel for what they've got going on, what their philosophies are, what his philosophy is, because now his philosophy doesn't have to take a back seat to anyone because he's the coach now and he can implement what he thinks. So maybe Hale, will end up being someone who worked out. It's just, we're still day one.
Yeah. He hasn't even been introduced yet. I mean, they announced it, but he hasn't been introduced, so I'm sure he's getting on the phone with recruits because signing day is 48 hours away, less than that now, right? More like 36. So, he's probably doing that. He's probably talking to coaches, because I don't know how many of the current coaching staff are going to go with the last head coach to Tulane, so there's going to be some movement there. And then there's going to be movement. So there's all kinds of dominoes and all of those different things. And it's kind of what I like about college football, to be honest with you. It's all the moving parts, right? I mean, and so he's got a lot to do. He's got a lot to do between now and Wednesday, and then from Wednesday on. And is Troy in a bowl game? I assume they are. So what's that look like? So there's all of those different things that are going on right now. So, hey, I'll say it. Congratulations to Gerad Parker. I think it's a great move for him.
Absolutely. I think it's a great move too. I don't think it's a step back because again, it would be one thing if he were taking a job at a rebuilding project at this level, but he is taking over a successful program at this level. The only pressure on Gerad Parker is if he's unable to maintain the success, that they've already got going there. Because again, the last couple guys who have been there have parlayed their time at Troy into, the next step. They've climbed the ladder, turned them into better head coaching positions moving up the ladder. So I don't think it's a step back for him at all. And you are still talking about a state in a region where Alabama is. You've got, Alabama, Georgia, there are still a lot of players in that area who aren't all playing for Power 5, Georgia and Alabama and Florida State in that area. So, I just mentioned DeMarcus Ware. He was from Alabama originally. Troy is in Alabama. There's a ton of untapped potential type talent in that area that can go to a place like Troy. And, I think that's, especially again, when you look at, like, I said it before, Gerad Parker speaks their language, he might be Kentucky.
Yeah.
So maybe they can differentiate the twang, Kentucky twang from Alabama twang and Georgia twang or whatever. But, he's not going to sound as different down there. He speaks their language down there.
He doesn't have to fake a Southern accent,
That's right. That's right.
So, hey, somebody put it in the chat, but I just looked it up to confirm. Do you know who Troy is playing in their bowl game?
I do not.
Duke.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Talk about worlds colliding.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it's Duke and Troy, and they play Saturday. This coming Saturday. So
maybe a few more eyes on that game now.
Yeah. So, he'll get the innocuous interview, during the game, I'm sure, about being the next head coach, that kind of thing. And Manny Diaz will probably get an interview in the middle of the game too. Yeah. You got two teams with no head coach, it's going to be crazy.
NH, how much of an influence will Pete Bavacqua have on this hire versus Jack Swarber? I mean, Jack's got about 7 months left on his tenure as the athletic director at Notre Dame, and Pete Bavacqua has been working as the special assistant. I would think at the very least, because by the time Notre Dame takes the field next, Pete Bavacqua will be the guy, and Jack Swarbrick will be a couple of months into his at least athletic director retirement. Whether he completely hangs everything up at that point, I'm sure he'll do some kind of consulting or whatever. But the point is, Pete Bavacqua is going to be in charge. So I would think that those two are going to bounce a lot of things off each other in this process, that it's not just going to be Jack Swarbrick, making, and obviously Marcus Freeman is going to, Marcus Freeman is ultimately going to be the one who is, he's going to do, the majority of the vetting and find the guy that he wants. Then it's just going to be up to the athletic director and the president. Is this a guy we deem worthy of being part of this staff? I mean,
it's going to be a situation. Marcus Freeman's like, this is the guy I want. And then it's going to be like, okay, this is what it takes to get him. Can we make it happen? Like that. That's how I feel the process is going to go. It's not it's not Pete's hire, as somebody said.
Right.
It's not Jack's hire. It's Marcus Freeman's hire. Right. But it's just like anything else.
They have to decide, again, just what you said. Is he, what he brings to the table, is he worth whatever money needs to be paid to get him?
It's like at the school, the principal wants to hire a teacher, but he still has to go through HR to make sure that they can afford that teacher. I mean, are they going to be able to pay what it takes to bring that teacher over to this school? It's the same exact situation. Marcus Freeman's the principal. It's his hire, but he still has to get it approved. It's that kind of a deal. So I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of roadblocks, to getting who Marcus Freeman wants. I just don't see that being the case. And everybody needs to keep in mind, just because it's not a name that people are bringing up, right, on a consistent basis, doesn't mean it's a bad hire. You've got to dig into it. You've got to see what their track record is. You got to see what their resume is. See what they've done. Keep that in mind, folks. Just keep it in mind.
Okay.
It's just frustrating, Sean. Ignorance is frustrating to me.
Irish Steel 63. It's better? Okay, I thought he was asking originally. He says it's better for Notre Dame if former coaches have success, i.e. Gerad Parker, etc. Absolutely. It means that, like whatever you're seeing here applied to the next step. And I mean, I'll be honest, because of the track record that some of the guys that came before him have, I really wasn't sure about what Chuck Martin was going to do as a head coach. And
Sure.
he's been at Miami, Ohio for what? Gosh, it's been around
It's
10
been a
years or so
while
now,
It's
right?
been a
Like
while. Yeah.
he's been there. I mean, like when Jesse and his high school teammate Shaq Van were teammates here in town, and that's been what, 10,
Was that
11
really when it went
years
down?
ago. Well,
Wow.
Chuck was the head coach already at all, because I remember he was recruiting Shaq over there. So
okay. He's 2014.
Yeah.
2014 is when he took over at Miami of Ohio. So 2014 to the present.
Yep. But yeah, my point is he's been a pretty solid head coach for the MAC level. He's been a good head coach.
They've won multiple MAC titles, and he's dealing with a lot of smart kids down there at Miami of Ohio, and so it's he's been good. And look at the track record of the defensive coordinators, the last three, right? They're either head coaches, they're all head coaches, and then you look at the track record of the last two offensive coordinators. One is playing for a national championship as an offensive coordinator, the other one's a head coach. I would say the track record of the last five coordinators for Notre Dame offensively and defensively are doing pretty good for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So,
interesting question from Zach. Do you see a scheme change? Will the new OC use the same pro style offense?
I think we were looking at a scheme change if Gerad Parker was here. So, yes, I do think there's going to be a scheme
change. At least
change.
To some extent, we were going to see a scheme change.
Again, is it going to be obvious to the naked eye to somebody who doesn't understand X's and O's? Maybe not, but I still think it would be different. And I think that it would be different to those with, that I just described, right? So it's not going to be like they're all of a sudden they're going to be doing like the run and shoot. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be that kind of a drastic situation. But it was going to change regardless. You're bringing in Riley Leonard. You're not going to run the same offense that you ran with Sam Hartman. That was just not going to happen.
Vince, I feel like this is a pretty good segue for us. I feel like this is a time where I can ask you, are you ready for rapid fire?
Is it already time for rapid fire? Woo!
Well, because if I can find it, because I think that this kind of goes, a little bit, what we were originally going to do is just, kind of play a bunch of sound bites from Marcus Freeman's press conference.
It's all old news by now. Who knew?
Yeah, I know. So I've got to find it. So here is Marcus Freeman talking about, he was asked about going to the transfer portal for a quarterback and what he was looking for from that quarterback. Now, he can't say Riley Leonard's name out loud, basically, until Wednesday.
The look on his face?
Yes. Yes, I did.
He looked over at somebody.
He looked over
I don't know who it was.
At Katie, his sports information communications person, to say, what am I allowed to say here? He did that a couple times when some of this stuff was addressed. So here's what he said when asked about what they were looking for in bringing in a quarterback via the transfer portal this year.
I think we were looking for, something very similar in terms of Sam, right? When we looked at Sam Hartman, we were looking for a guy that was talented, right? He's a good football player, proven football player, but a guy that would fit into our locker room and fit into that quarterback's room. And that's what we were looking for when we talk about making another addition to this program. Like, you got to, be proven to be a good quarterback. Like, we owe it to our football program to find the best football player that fits our locker room that's out there, and that's what we tried to identify.
So I'm curious what you think about that response when you hear that response from Marcus Freeman.
I think he's 100% right. That's what you're looking for. I think because he did not get into specifics about what they were looking for from an on the field standpoint, right? We're looking for somebody with running ability and somebody that can do this and somebody that can make off balance throws and somebody that can, he didn't go specifically, but he talked about fit. He talked about leadership, all of those different things. And I think those are all extremely important to what you need to get. If you're going to bring somebody in as a 1-year rental, they've got to fit. You don't have time to try to make them fit. They have to already fit. And I think that's really important.
What I found the most curious, though, is he didn't say anything about the specific style of football that Riley Leonard plays. And that's what we're talking about now is, okay, now you've got Riley Leonard. Again, he's a very specific kind of quarterback, like Riley Leonard, classic pro style offense. You know, like all we heard about Sam Hartman, get out of the slow mesh, go to a pro style offense. You wouldn't connect Riley Leonard to pro style. And that, again, that takes me to what we were just talking about with it. It seemed like we were going to see probably a philosophy change, or, you know, at least some kind of changes in this offense going forward had Gerad Parker stayed, considering they were bringing in Riley Leonard and considering some of the other guys they've got behind him. Now, you do have a mix of different kinds of quarterbacks among these recruits who are coming in behind him as well. So I think that that's sort of like what you're looking for in an offensive coordinator now. Like, he can't be dead set, I don't think, you know, with blinders on, like, this is what I run. This is, you know, what I have to run this. I think that he's going to, there's going to have to be some openness and willingness to be able to adjust to some of these guys who he's going to inherit in here, because he does have such a diverse mix, especially with the quarterbacks.
Oh, absolutely. And I think scheme is going to be the most important thing that they're going to be looking for from an offensive coordinator. And obviously that offensive coordinator needs to know what he has coming in specific to this 24 season, right? Because they were very specific about what they went and got in the transfer portal. And you can't just throw that out. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? In this regard, like, you're going to have to use those guys, specifically Riley Leonard, right? Marcus Freeman isn't going to bring in somebody that's just going to be, hey, pocket passer, you know, whatever, that kind of, that's not going to be the case, in my opinion. He's going to go out and he's going to find somebody who has a diverse offensive strategy, and it's going to fit what Riley Leonard is capable of doing and where he can play, at a high level. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah, we've got a mix of, you know, Riley Leonard might never see the field at Notre Dame. Leonard is the final bridge to the future Notre Dame quarterback. Just like with Sam Hartman. Remember, there was an offensive coordinator change last year after Sam Hartman had come in, and they're not bringing in Riley Leonard, regardless of who the offensive coordinator is, for him to stand on the bench for a year, sit on the bench for a year. That's not happening.
No, it's not.
So, Vince, probably the biggest piece of news that came out of Marcus Freeman's press conference on Saturday had to do with the offensive line. And I think it was the first question asked, actually. Left tackle, right tackle. Both jobs are open right now. And here's what Freeman said is going on there.
Actually, Charles Jagusah has gotten the majority of the first team reps at the left tackle, and then Tosh and Emil have really been battling out at the right tackle position. And so we've been rotating them throughout the first 5 practices that we've had. But today, as we started going towards scout teams, Jagusah will be at the left, and then it'll be a battle to see who's going to be the right tackle for the game.
Interesting. Jagusah, the true freshman, on the left side. Tosh Baker, Emil Wagner battling for the right side. Vince, what do you think about all that?
I was shocked yet excited about that particular answer, because we all know that Charles Jagusah, based on his recruiting rankings and what, you know, I hear Brian and Ryan talking about when it comes to Charles when he came into Notre Dame and leading up to coming into Notre Dame. I mean, the kid's a stud. The kid is really, really, really good. And the fact that he's able to flash that and show the staff, like, hey, I deserve a shot at this left tackle position as a true freshman, taking over for one of the better tackles that Notre Dame has had in a long, long time, I think that says a lot. And he's pushing 2 guys that have a bunch of experience in the program to battle it out on the right side. Like, that was surprising to me, but I'm excited about it.
I'm in that same boat, and I'm going to play more for Marcus Freeman specifically on Charles Jagusah before we continue more on him. Here's why.
I mean, he's got natural ability. We've noticed that in recruiting. We noticed that when he got here. There was just not a need at that moment for him to play for us, right? We had a pretty good left tackle that start for us all year, but he's shown on scout team. He's shown in the bye weeks and the individual drills that he's going to be a future great offensive lineman for us. And, throughout the first couple practices, we rotated guys at different positions, but he continued to flourish at that left tackle position, has done a really good job.
I mean, like you heard him, like they saw good things from him right away, but it's like you've got Joe Alt. It's not like Charles Jagusah
Right.
is going to push, for playing time at that point. It is a little curious that he was never on the two deep. You had Tosh Baker
Yeah.
essentially listed on the two deep all season as the number 2 at the left, and now Tosh and Emil Wagner are battling there on the right. So kind of, a couple of different things, because Jagusah is a true freshman now. And remember, like Joe Alt became the starting left tackle as a true freshman himself. And look what, how things turned out
And Blake
for him.
Fisher.
And Blake, yeah, that's right. Blake Fisher was obviously before he was injured as well. This is a little bit of a puzzle, I think, because again, I think it was more simple. It's like, okay, you've got a freshman and you had Tosh Baker, a veteran over there. And then on the other side, you've got Emil Wagner. So the fact that, Wagner is a redshirt freshman, Baker's a senior with 2 seasons of eligibility left. So you've got different levels of investment in the program. Does it affect how you might approach who gets the start at right tackle just for this game, just for the Sun Bowl? If Jagusah is going to be the left tackle, how does that maybe play into what the thinking might be on the right side?
I honestly, look, Notre Dame is very light on tackles, so you don't want to lose anybody, right? I mean,
Right.
You don't want to lose anybody. But I could very easily see whoever doesn't win this battle.
See, we're thinking along the same lines here, because that's and again, like you've got a veteran like Tosh Baker who is listed as the number 2 at the other side. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, Alt's gone. You got to go battle for this other side because Jagusah's, and I'm sure Jagusah has shown that he deserves to be there or he wouldn't be there. So I'm not saying that, but I think that has to be a potential concern. Like if it's not Tosh Baker, do you have to worry about, losing another guy?
That's a legit worry, honestly.
Yeah.
That's a legit worry to me.
You still want to start the best guy, but if it's close, do you go with the veteran, do you think? Because like the thing with Emil Wagner to me is like, people have joked about him. Well, he'll go out and play wide receiver during the game. I mean, the guy needs to eat, eat a few milkshakes and steaks and some pizza, like the guy needs around probably 6,000 to 10,000 calories a day to get some more, beef on his bones, right? Like that's the thing is like, how does he stand up there on the edge because of that lack of size that he has right now?
No, it's going to be, I'm very interested to see how this thing plays out because look, they got 20 offensive linemen scheduled to be on the roster, I think next year. If my remembering is accurate here, let me double check just so I'm giving everybody the right information. So I'm sorry, they're down to 17 offensive linemen. That's still a lot. I still anticipate a couple of linemen hitting the portal, after the game or after spring practice or whatever the case may be, especially if they're looking for a tackle in the portal, which everybody claims that is the case. And so,
well, that was my next question. Like, okay, so Jagusah is the left tackle. Are you still looking in the portal, or is it dependent upon whether or not you keep one or both of these? The other guys on the right side.
I think they're still looking personally. Yeah. I would anyway, if the right guy came along. I mean, that's obviously going to be very, very important. Somebody said, what about Gerby Lambert, who hasn't even stepped foot on campus yet? I wouldn't be putting all my eggs in a true freshman's basket, but of course he's going to have an opportunity to battle for it. I mean, why wouldn't he?
Look, right? Everyone wanted to make Rocco Spindler a starter before they even saw him play because of the reputation that he had coming out of high school. You still need to see these guys, as much as you think of them, you need to see them get on the field and go head to head with other legitimate college-sized men, and not high school guys. Right. Like we've all been to high school games, and like these legitimate tackle type and like power 5 type offensive linemen, they stand out in a high school game because like you could stack two centers on top of each other in a typical high school game, and they're going to be about the same size as one of these guys.
100%. Yes. My high school had, pretty sure our starting center was about 5'7". I know one of our guards was 5'8". Like that's just, they didn't build them in a high school level like they do at Notre Dame.
Look, that wasn't a knock on Rocco, by the way. DK, come on, chill out, DK. Give me a break. No, I'm kidding. I mean, because I know that he's joking, but Rocco was Jesse's first overall pick when we did the confidence picks back in the spring, and he worked out. But he's also a junior, and Jesse's chiming in now. But he's also a junior now, and I'm saying when he was a freshman, like for 2 years, people were like, "Where's Rocco Spindler? Where's Rocco Spindler?"
Right.
Well, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get it all worked out, and that's my point. So and as much as you think of Gerby Lambert or whoever it happens to be, you still got to see him get on the field and go up against some men and not high school boys.
And here's the problem with Rocco getting hurt when he did. There's a chance he gets Wally pipped, man, because there's a lot of talent on the interior on this roster.
Right.
And, the guys that have been in, Billy Schrouth looks really, really good. Pat Coogan has held his own, this year. Does he continue to start next? Like, there are a lot of options on the inside. Charles Jagusah was practicing on the inside. Now, obviously, he's moved to left tackle. You don't make that move unless that's where he's going to be next year, obviously, or at least practicing at that position. And so there's going to be some movement on the offensive line between next year and this year. There's no doubt about that to me.
I concur with that.
Yeah. And it's a best man win. Look, find your best five, get them on the field. You're going to have some dynamic running backs behind you. You're going to have a dynamic running quarterback behind you. The offensive line doesn't need to be elite. Now, it would help. It would be great. There's a bunch of guys on this roster who have the ability to be elite, right? Individually. Now they have to do it as a group, but you've got a bunch of skill talent that is going to get yards. And if this offensive line, whoever it happens to be, whatever the five is, if they can just put together a decent season, they're going to have a bunch of talent. They're going to have a bunch of success.
Mm-hmm. Vince, I'll get back to some more Marcus Freeman comments here in a minute, but you may have heard there's a strength coach opening, and there is a name that has popped up. The reports, I think it was Football Scoop. John Bryce had it yesterday. Lauren Landau, former Broncos strength coach. I don't know exactly how much you have looked into him. Do you have any thoughts on Lauren Landau?
I have zero thoughts on Lauren Landau. Somebody tweeted at me about a 10-minute talk about him. I just haven't had 10 minutes to sit down and listen.
I was on that tweet thing as well, and I listened to a couple minutes.
Did you?
And it just
didn't do anything for you?
It didn't really, like, apparently there was some controversy about, being let go by the Broncos and that kind of stuff. And, look, I don't know how we're supposed to make judgments about strength coaches, right? It's like every NFL team has a strength coach. The guy was a strength coach for an NFL team. I think the biggest thing is the sort of the divide apparently before was old school versus new school sort of thinking philosophies and those kind of things. And so the question is going to be, does Lauren Landau or whoever else, does he meet what Marcus Freeman is looking for with, I think, sort of newer school type stuff?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the question.
Yeah.
And I haven't had time enough to look, completely into him at this point.
Nope, I haven't either.
I know he's worked with a lot of NFL guys, though, like
and
NFL and other sports as well.
He's doing the individual thing right now. I think he owns his own company, that kind of thing. So, you've got to weigh whether that's a good move for him to come to Notre Dame, be the strength coach, all of those different types of deals. And so, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to be said. The strength coach at Penn is really dialed into that kind of stuff. I actually was thinking about walking down and talking to him and seeing what he had to say about all this stuff. He's on like the national board for strength and conditioning coaches. And, it's a very exact world. Like they're in their own world. Like strength coaches are their own deal. You know what I mean, Sean? And so it really depends, like you said, on what Marcus Freeman is looking for. And I know he is looking for a guy who's on the cutting edge with technology and numbers and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. So it would not surprise me if it was going to be a younger guy that he brings in.
I agree.
And I don't know if this Landau guy, I have no idea how old he is.
Well, so. I think one of the things that kind of followed him out of Denver is, some soft tissue injuries and stuff like that. And the guy in that podcast that you were talking about that we were tagged on,
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people who have worked with him in the past, and they all had great things to say about him. And basically, I think what they were kind of saying is, look, whatever, issues that there were was not something that a specific strength coach
Gotcha.
probably could have prevented. It sounded
Gotcha.
like, but
Makes sense.
yeah. I.e., sometimes stuff just happens. It's kind of the way it goes.
Right.
But like from Notre Dame's perspective, you sure did have a rash of wide receivers with hamstrings this year.
That was a definite issue. Whether that was just something that was from the strength and conditioning side of things, or whether that was just a giant coincidence. It was a problem. There's no doubt about that. It was a problem. Joe Allen says strength and conditioning coaches are like kickers in their own field. I mean, kickers are weirdos too. Believe me, I've got 1-2 floors up for me right now. He's a weirdo too. Yep. So there's no doubt about that.
So more from Marcus Freeman. Steve Angeli is obviously going to make his first career start in the Sun Bowl, and Marcus Freeman talked about what he is looking for from Angeli.
I think what Steve has done all year has been tremendous in terms of building confidence in the coaching staff. As a backup, you're getting important reps in practice, and obviously in the opportunities he's had in the game, he's done a tremendous job, right? And we have a lot of confidence in Steve Angeli, and with Kenny, he'll be able to get some meaningful reps too. There's not a plan to try to play two quarterbacks, right, where we're going to go with Steve, and we want to make sure we give him the best opportunity to succeed. And so there's a lot of confidence, everybody in our football program, that Steve Angeli can lead us to where we need to go.
What did you think of that?
I mean, devil's advocate would say, what do you want him to say?
Well, let me ask you more specifically. What did you think about weaving Kenny Minchey in there? Kenny Minchey will get a chance to get some meaningful reps, and then in the next breath, there's no plan to play two quarterbacks in this game. It sure sounds like they're planning on getting two quarterbacks in this game, though, doesn't it?
Let's just say it sounded like Kenny Minchey was on his mind. How about that? It sounded like, and look, from everything,
it almost sounded like he caught himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And hold it. I wasn't really supposed to say that.
Reeling it back in, baby. Bring it back. Bring it back.
Yes.
It was it was very interesting to hear him say that, because it caught my ear as I listened to that for the first time when I played back his press conference the other day. I was surprised that he brought up Kenny Minchey, because I don't believe that was the question that was asked.
Wasn't asked, no.
Yeah. And so he's obviously going to be getting some reps. I don't know. Like I said, maybe there isn't a direct plan to get him in. Okay, that's fine. But he's probably nipping at the heels of Steve Angeli. I still believe Kenny Minchey would beat out Steve Angeli if it was a head-to-head competition, but that's not the case. Steve Angeli's been the backup quarterback all year. Starters out, Steve Angeli gets to start. I get it. That's fine. I have no problem with that, but I bet you Kenny Minchey's dipping at his heels hardcore.
And I think that where you are right now, you were already going to be starting a quarterback who's never made a start. Angeli does have more experience, obviously, than Minchey. Minchey's basically got the kind of experience that Angeli got last year. Took some snaps, knelt down, handed off, whatever it happens to be. But you also just lost your offensive coordinator. So now you've got your quarterback coach stepping in to be the offensive coordinator, calling plays for the first time. It just, and obviously those comments came before today, even though Marcus Freeman had to have an idea that potentially it was coming, that this could happen. But still, it just seems like there's a lot of different variables, and the fewer variables that you can kind of have on display, I think probably the better, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Absolutely. 100%. I think they're both getting first team reps at this point, whether it's like 70-30 or 60-40 or something along those lines. Look, Steve Angeli has earned the right to start in this game by being the backup all season. I have no problem with that. I'll be disappointed if I don't see number 8 get a few snaps. That's for sure. And not in mop-up duty.
Right. So speaking of quarterbacks, Angeli's getting the opportunity because Sam Hartman's gone. First, he was going to play in the Sun Bowl, and then I guess it was a week ago today, he decided to opt out of the Sun Bowl. And Marcus Freeman said, or was asked what changed between he was going to play and now he's not going to play.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to ask Sam. He made the decision that he's going to opt out, and he talked to the people that, he felt are important in his life, and made a decision that he felt was best for him. And as I've told all of the guys that have opted out, I can disagree with your decision and still support you, right? And that's the same thing I told Sam and every single other one that opted out. I disagree. I think you should play, but I love you and I support you, and you're going to do great things.
I mean, I totally agree with that last part. Like what else can you do as a head coach? You can't, you can't kick and scream and be like Narduzzi over there at Pittsburgh and cry every time some, player does something that you don't want him to do. It's like, it's all you can do, especially publicly and even behind the scenes, I think, because, look, there was Freeman and Hartman had a great relationship. You saw it on the sideline. They threw love shots at each other and, arrows and all that different kind of stuff, in press conferences during the season. Things worked out fairly well. I mean, obviously there are 3 games that, might say a little bit otherwise, but things worked out fairly well. And I just think that guys are going to make their own decisions ultimately, and you can't control every decision that they make. Just like being a parent, all you can do is support them with the decision that they're going to make ultimately.
Yep. And that's, it's interesting because if you remember when he took over in December, right? And they were playing in the Fiesta Bowl. And Kyle Hamilton and whoever else it was opted out of the bowl game. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't let them travel with the team. He wouldn't let them be a part of it. He wouldn't let them be there. He said they could be on the sideline as alumni or whatever, that kind of a deal.
Uh-huh.
He seems to have changed his tune a little bit as far as that is concerned. He's not shutting these guys out like he did that first time around. I think
That's
he kind of
true.
learned his lesson a little bit on that one. But I think the message that he is sending is, I don't agree with you. I think you should play, but I understand it and I'm going to support you. I think that's, you said it best, right? That's what a parent does. I tell my kid that all the time. Like, I don't agree with what you're doing. And I still have a little bit more control over him than Marcus Freeman has over his kids.
Yeah.
But like, I'm going to support you regardless. But, here's what I would have done or something along those lines. I think that's a great.
At the end of the day, yeah. I mean, there are certain decisions, like you're not going to let your kid make every decision on his own.
Right.
But, like you want to give them as much input, experience, whatever that you have insight on the subject. But at the end of the day, that, like, especially Hartman, I mean, the guy's been around for 6 years. He's 24 years old. He's an adult. He has to make his own decision on what he wants to do. And I mean, it's, again, like going back to the parent kid thing, it's the same thing. As they get older, you have to encourage them to make their own decision. Just give them the best information that you can, but they've got to make it ultimately on their own, and you support them as much as possible.
Well, and you went through this already with Jesse, obviously, and the whole college choice thing and the whole thing. And it's like, I'm there. I'm like in the passenger seat on this whole ride, right? And it's like, I'm trying to help steer it a little bit, but at the end of the day, he's in the driver's seat. And it's like, okay, I'm going to support you in whatever you want to do, but I'm going to kind of try to steer it a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how I feel. And I don't know how you handled it, but
I mean, he had to make I don't know if he's still here. He had to make a college decision.
Sure.
Right. And I think his mom and I kind of thought that there was another option or two that we preferred over where he ended up going because of the schooling and just the whole thing. Long run, it worked out, but
absolutely.
Ultimately he had to make that decision. It wasn't the exact decision we would have made, but he had to make the decision at the end of the day. That's the way it played out.
Well, I mean, and at the end of the day, he went to the school that I took him to. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
That's right.
As well.
That's right. That's what it comes down to.
I still remember that. It was a lot of fun, by the way. So
do you DKS why I hate the state of Michigan? I mean, isn't it obvious?
I mean, I will be steering my kid away from the state of Michigan as much as possible. Okay. So
there is one good thing. Well, two good things, maybe.
Okay.
They have nice craft breweries in southwestern Michigan. That's one. But on that same thing, in Grand Rapids, they have a place called the Mitten. Of course, Michigan
Okay.
being the Mitten state, but they have a place called the Mitten. It is a craft brewery that also serves pizza. It is an old firehouse that is baseball themed inside. It's the bet. Like, that is the only truly good thing I've ever found in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, I get it. My wife was born in Michigan, so I have to be careful. But she wised up and moved before she was 10, so it's all good.
See, if I was born and raised or whatever in Michigan, maybe I'd feel a little bit differently. But I mean,
yeah, I have to be careful because like the in-laws are all like Tigers fans and Lion, like they're all Michigan people. So I have to be careful with my Michigan hatred, like the outright Michigan hatred around them, because then I get side-eyed and all of that. So I gotta be careful.
On the Sam Hartman subject, I've seen some people compare it to Drew Pine and the way he left, or, just flat out saying Sam Hartman quit on the team. Do you see those being the same thing, opting out versus transferring out before the bowl game? The Pine Hartman connection,
No, I do not see it as the same thing at all. The transferring out before the bowl game, that's different than opting out. I mean, it just is. It's just, I don't know. I guess the end of the day, it's the same thing. You're not playing in the bowl game. And so it feels like you're quitting on the team. But like, if you transfer out, you're really quitting on the team. Like, you're no longer part of the program. So I do not see it the same way. Drew Pine wasn't making the decision based on his NFL aspirations. He was making the decision to go to a different school. I mean, at least you can say Sam Hartman thinks whatever he thinks about his draft prospects, and that's why he's opting out, because he doesn't want to get hurt. So I don't know. I look at it completely differently.
I do too. And like Irish Steel 63, why pay a guy who doesn't see it through? We paid Sam good money.
We didn't pay Sam a dime. Pay Sam a dime.
He got a lot of different NIL money from
Yeah.
different specific NIL sponsors. Now, did Notre Dame, obviously the connection to Notre Dame,
Yeah.
Did they connect them? Yeah, but there wasn't money literally coming out of Notre Dame's pocket.
No,
Sam Hartman.
it wasn't.
Completely different thing. And regardless of if you believe it's necessary or not for where he is likely to go in the draft, Sam Hartman believes, I think, that he is protecting, whatever draft stock that he has. He's protecting his health for the draft. Drew Pine decided, because he was informed that the team was going to bring in some competition, i.e. Sam Hartman, in the future at the position, he just left the team and entered the transfer portal right away. Now, other players have obviously left the team and entered the portal, but Drew Pine was a starting quarterback, and that season was still going on. So to pull the plug the way he did, just a few weeks before the bowl game is a completely different situation.
Different feeling. It was a different feeling. And Keith has an interesting point, and I'm going to bring it up. He says Hartman may not get drafted, but JD Bertrand and JJB may not get drafted either, but they are playing. I'll play devil's advocate, and I will support Sam Hartman in this way only. He's opting out because both of his tackles opted out, right? And his starting running back opted out. The defense,
he's not going to say it out loud, and Marcus Freeman didn't say it out loud, but
that's why. Let's be honest.
That's what I believe.
Yes,
is the reason. Yes,
correct. And so the defense is almost 100% intact, right? I mean, they lost Cam Hart, obviously, but that plays no bearing on anything JD or JJB are going to be doing. Nana Osafo-Mensah opted out. He's a backup, right?
Well, he didn't opt out. He transferred.
Well, he transferred. Yeah, exactly. So who else is opting out that truly affects the defense? The defense is almost 100% intact.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I just feel like it's a completely different scenario. If the offense was as intact as the defense is, Sam Hartman plays in this game.
Look, I've said before, if you're not considered a first or second round draft pick, there's no reason to opt out of these games. Agreed. That's especially as a first-round pick. If you're projected to be a first-round pick, the kind of money that you're going to make is so different than any other round in the draft. I completely understand that, like,
Right.
does it still stink? Yeah, especially because of, these are lower to mid-tier bowls
Yep.
anyway. Like, would all these guys be opting out if Notre Dame was even playing in a New Year's Six bowl instead of the Sun Bowl? We don't know definitively, but I have to think no. Like they wouldn't be opting out
Yeah.
at the rate that they did.
Right.
And again, I feel like I get the point that Keith was making, that those guys are out there, and like Javonte Jean-Baptiste is going to be a captain now, and all this different stuff. I don't disagree.
I know.
But I also I just don't think you can. I just like what Marcus Freeman said. I don't agree with it, but what else can you do but support it? There's really no other choice that you have. It's their health and their decision at the end of the day. I just feel like, again, like I think it started 6-ish years ago with Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette, who had both suffered injuries playing running back during the season. And so they opted out of their bowls at the end of the year to protect their health, try to get healthy, get ready for the draft, so they could go to workouts and all that stuff. And 6 years later, it has turned into something completely different.
Yeah.
When you've got guys who are going to be 5th and 6th round picks who are opting out, and guys who quite honestly might not even get drafted who are opting out of bowl games.
You said it last week. I'll say it again this week. There's 3 guys that I have no problem opting out: Audric Estime, Cam Hart, and Joe Alt, for different reasons. But those 3 guys, I have no problem opting out. Everybody else, I have a problem with it. So I give a lot of respect to those defensive guys that are not opting out. I think that's fantastic. I love that. Right. And there's a reason that some of those guys were rewarded with a captainship, moving forward for the bowl game. So I love it. I would. Now, again, my kid's a kicker, but if he wasn't and he had the opportunity to opt out and wasn't going to be a top 5, top 10 draft pick, I would tell him to play. Dude, play. When are you going to get another opportunity to play in college with your teammates?
Yeah. And like people are saying, like Jalen Smith is the worst case scenario, guy who could have been the number 1 overall pick. But again, like most of these guys aren't going to be overall number 1 picks. They're just not. So that, like, I don't know. I, again, disagree with it, but I understand.
But I would support him. Like if I was in Marcus Freeman's position, what else can you do? You know what I mean? You don't want to sour them moving forward or anything else like that. There's no point in that. So it's like, hey, I disagree with you. I think you should play, but I'm going to support you as I always have. And I think that's the best comment and the best attitude you can possibly have as a head coach.
So CJ Carr is on campus. He got on campus, started practicing with the team last Friday. Here's Marcus Freeman on the benefit to his freshman quarterback.
It's great. I couldn't imagine being CJ and coming in here by yourself. And he was here yesterday for meetings and walkthroughs, and it was like the first day of school, you're the new guy. And, I was able to spend some time with him during practice and after practice. And today he was slinging the ball around, and he's going to be a great player. But it's just good to have him here, right, in that comfort. And so as you move into the winter and you move into spring ball, he's not starting from ground zero. He knows what the expectations are. He'll know where to go. He'll be able to help those guys that are coming in January figure it out. But I'm glad he's here, and I'm excited for the future of CJ Carr.
So you good with all that, Vince?
Yeah, 100%. It's odd, obviously, that he's here as early as he is. But if you've got that option, why would you not take it? He's within driving distance. Obviously, he drove down all the time to Notre Dame. Yeah. He's very familiar with the coaching staff. He's very familiar with the team. He basically graduated high school Friday, and that afternoon he got in a car and came down to Notre Dame. Like, how freaking cool is that? Like, I think it's awesome. I think it's freaking awesome. That's what I think.
I can't imagine like leaving high school in the middle of the year, and now I'm in college and I'm playing football or whatever sport it happens to be.
Right.
Taking off like that. And yeah, he just jumped down, and next thing you know, he's in the middle of meetings and going to practice, and and doing the whole thing and soaking it up. And, and I hadn't really thought, like the whole, like he's already as the quarterback by nature, that it's a leadership position. And now
Right.
it's like Marcus Freeman said, I hadn't, like he's going to be here. He's going to have a feel, kind of a lay of the land and the whole thing. And now the other freshmen get in, and he's going to be kind of a step ahead and be able to help those guys out, show them where to go, do all those different things. And I really don't even think it's a matter of like on-field football stuff. He'll get a little bit of that, but at the same time, now he's going to have a new offensive coordinator, so he might not even get any, benefit out of that at all, but it's just the other stuff. The fact that he's here and he's able to go through that. And it's like you said, it's really cool that he's able to be in that position.
And like you said, the specific X's and O's of it, the play calling and those kind of things, that's meaningless. You know what I mean? That it's getting on campus. It's, getting in the locker room, finding your locker, getting dressed, understanding how practice is going to go, the tempo, just being a part of it, running through the drills and, all of those different things. Like that's what these next couple of weeks are going to be about for CJ Carr. You know what I mean? And so I think that's where he's going to benefit immensely from being there these couple of weeks. And then he's going to get to go home and hang out with his family some more and then come back and do it all over again. So it's almost like he's going to camp. You know what I mean? Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going to go to camp for a couple of weeks. I'll see you at Christmas. And it's kind of funny.
You go to the bowl game, and then after the bowl game's over, you get to go home for a couple more weeks, and then you come back for school in the middle of January. So you're right. Awesome. It is kind of like camp. Yeah.
with like the best camp ever. I mean,
no kidding.
Awesome.
Talk about fantasy camp. That's right.
Seriously.
Okay, so one more piece of sound for Marcus Freeman from his press conference Saturday. Mike Brown, the new wide receivers coach at Notre Dame. And here is what Marcus Freeman had to say about him.
Added Mike Brown to our staff, which we announced last week. Mike's obviously a guy that I worked with closely at Cincinnati. And to me, the things that I remember most about our time together was the developer that he was of the entire room. I've seen him truly develop that room at Cincinnati. And, I know people will look at the draft picks that came out of that room, but to me, it's from top to bottom, seeing him develop young people. It's the recruiter and evaluator he is. Really just the guys I've seen him bring into that program and develop, and the energy he brings. He brings an energy to this coaching staff, to that wide receivers room, and last but not least, the husband, the father, the person he is. I'm excited to get his wife Diamond here, his two sons, 3 and Drew, and have them join our family.
Vince, I don't know about you, like when I was sitting there and I heard Marcus Freeman, like that first part about he's a developer of the entire room. He's like, you can talk about the draft picks, but he's a developer of the entire room. Like, am I reading too much into it? Did it feel like, we kind of got maybe an explanation of why Mike Brown is here and the last guy is gone?
I mean, he hit the nail on the head, right? I mean, that's what everybody wants, the development of the wide receiver room.
Added Mike Brown to our staff, which
What's happening? What is happening? Sean Stiers, I'm not touching it anymore.
I think we were both pushing buttons at the same time.
Yes, we were.
And
yes, we were. All right, you're back.
So that's gone.
So the development piece, yes, 100%. That's why he's here. That's what he needs to do. That's directive number one. We need to develop the talent that we have here at Notre Dame. These kids have the talent. They need to now produce. That's on you. 100%. I love it. I think that's exactly why he's here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the whole room has to be developed. And I think you look at the way things had gone and the whole room was not being developed before.
Yep.
It can't be just about one or two guys. And I think
Absolutely.
that's kind of what it turned into before. So
yes,
looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing
whether it was I was gonna say whether it was the right one or two guys is a different conversation. So
yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Got a couple different questions. Women's basketball beat Purdue yesterday. That was
they did.
That was, always fun. Kind of saw it big time. Saw it coming. But Anthony wants to know if I've noticed any improvement in the women's basketball team since the South Carolina game. I think the biggest thing is, one, the overall depth that they have displayed because of the fact that Citron has only played 3 games and they've played so much without her. And now they've been without Cass Prosper for a handful of games now. Emma Risch, the freshman, has been out for a little bit, for a couple of games as well. So their depth has really been tested. And they're still out there trouncing teams night in and night out. But the other thing, I think that I don't know how much, how much Anthony has watched or how much other people have watched, but I think that Hannah Hidalgo, like early on, it was about, she was, scoring over 20 points a game, and she still continues to score over 20 points a game, and all the steals and all that different stuff. I think that she has grown already as a true point guard, just in terms of more, distribution and getting people involved that maybe she wasn't doing quite as much of early on those first couple games. But she and Anna DeWolf, the transfer from Fordham, also play really well together. Like, they see each other really well, and they both distribute really well. And I think that's the biggest thing. When the ball starts moving, especially when they're in transition, it looks pretty good, and those two work really well together. So I think that has been a bit, between the depth and just what those two, kind of that combination. And there's others as well. And Nat Marshall, for that matter, who is a senior and has battled some injuries over the course of her career. She's in a stretch. She just scored in double figures for the 5th consecutive game yesterday, and that's the first time that has ever happened in her career. And again, she's a senior now. 5 straight games she's been in double figures. So you've seen great development from her as a post player as well. So that's been good. Scott, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead. I'll save mine for the end.
Okay. Scott wants to know if Niele Ivey's given an update on Sonia Citron's recovery. If so, what's the update? The latest is they're expecting her back, potentially by the end of this month when go to Syracuse to open ACC play on New Year's Eve, potentially. So we shall see.
Wow,
and that was kind of the short end of the range. There were some different things being thrown out, but that was kind of the short end of the range that I had heard initially. So there's a chance that she'll be back by then.
I was gonna say that's only a couple of weeks away, so that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So I know people were begging me to say who the name that I thought in my head, about the offensive coordinator. So I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get in trouble, but I will say there's a post on the board at Irish Breakdown, or boards.irishbreakdown.com, where Brian let the name go. So it is out there on the board. So if you're a member of the board, you can go take a look and see what that intel is. And then he kind of goes into detail as to why that would be a good hire and all of those different things. So I'm not going to say the names. I don't think that's my place, but he did say it over on the board. So you guys can go check that out.
J Wick 13. I won't swear, but I saw the title of this board and dropped a big WTF bomb. Well, apparently J Wick was busy during the day and he didn't see what was going on. So I don't know. Should we address it kind of here at the end, since we've been on for a while and, there might be some people kind of jumping in late, the Gerad Parker going to Troy situation?
Yeah, might as well. It is breaking news for the most part. I mean, it's only been a few hours.
I'm in the camp, again, kind of circling back to where we started. When I first heard this news, I was quite frankly shocked that it's like, wow, 1 season and Gerad Parker is ready to become a head coach. But when you look at the connections to Troy and kind of how he ended up there, the guy who was the outgoing head coach at Troy, John Summerall, he has moved on to Tulane. Gerad Parker and Summerall played together in college. And Neil Brown, who also coached at Troy, who Parker coached under at West Virginia. So you've got that connection. He played with him as well. So you've got these three guys and the two former guys, Summerall and Brown, who Parker is, connected to both of them. You know that when Summerall moved on, as he got a bigger job, that the athletic director, Brent Jones, asked him probably, his thoughts on who might be a good candidate. And it just appears that Gerad Parker was one of the names that came up. And then you look at what Pete Thamel from ESPN was saying. They like the fact that he's a high energy coach, has a, big swath of experience is what Thamel said. And they also like the fact that he has offensive coordinator and recruiting coordinator in his background. So like you just connect the dots, and there are a lot of dots that connect him there. And, look, I think it's a good step for Gerad Parker because of the fact that this is a program that has been really good over the last few years. Summerall went 23-4 there in the last 2 years, 16-2 in the Sun Belt. So this is not like a bad program that Parker is taking over. He's taking over a healthy program. And you add in the fact that, his Southern connections and his Southern twang and just the whole thing. And again, like the fit down there at a place in Alabama, like Troy, I think it seems to make a lot of sense.
Yep, I completely agree with everything you said. This is not a step down for Gerad Parker at all. This is a step up. He's going from being a coordinator at obviously, arguably, one of the better jobs in the country. I have no doubt. I can very safely say that. But he's going to be a head coach at a Division I team who's 23-4 over the last 2 years. So, that's a step up, folks. And you may not, and that's okay if you don't want to agree with that. That's fine. But it is a step up.
Yeah, and I mean, there are people who are obviously more than happy to see Gerad Parker leave as well, right? And as I said at the start of the show, look, this is going to be the third offensive coordinator in as many seasons for Marcus Freeman. On the one hand, that's good because, like you said, Tommy Rees goes to Alabama, things worked out for him, but there were disgruntled people with Tommy Rees. Many of those same people wouldn't mind having Tommy Rees back after some of the things that they saw this year that, they wanted to pin solely on Gerad Parker. Gerad Parker's moving on to become a head coach. And, again, I'm not pointing the finger at Marcus Freeman, but at the same time, we're going to find out with this next hire if we see some of the same issues that come up that we've seen the last couple of years. We're going to know, whose responsibility that is. Should we have been blaming the offensive coordinator? Should we have been blaming the head coach? We're going to find out because we're going to see
coach.
The wide receiver coach guy,
like those are all new now. I mean, two of the three things are new. So if the same problems persist, take that to wherever you want to take it. But again, look at the last three defensive coordinators for Notre Dame. They're all head coaches. The last two offensive coordinators for Notre Dame, one's a head coach, one's playing for national championship as an offensive coordinator. Right. And the fourth defensive coordinator could be a head coach if he wanted to be at a lower place. You know what I mean? And so a lot of success for the last coordinators at Notre Dame. We'll see what happens with this next hire. And it's a hire for scheme, folks. I'm telling you right now, it's a hire for scheme. And it looks like it's going to be an outside hire, which is, I think, good news for all. So I
think that's what everybody wants, right? You want an outside.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you can't say Marcus Freeman's just hiring his buddies and all that stuff. Again, even though, as we said before, it's not like Marcus Freeman didn't try to hire outside before he ended up hiring Gerad Parker last year. I mean, we've got the receipts from the hockey game, right?
Absolutely. And there's a guy that was at Colorado who's now a head coach on the West Coast who was one of these guys that was vetted. The kid from Kansas State, who I think is at Texas A&M right now,
Colin
was
Klein,
one of the finalists. Obviously you had the guy from Utah. So, I mean, the plan was to go outside last time, and it got screwed up. And so, let's see what happens this time. That's all I can say.
And look, I am, because I saw Brent, I think his comments were being a little sarcastic, that he was making a minute ago. Oh, yes, absolutely. Gerad Parker would definitely be my top pick for head coach. I mean,
Brent, at the end of the day, what do you know about Gerad Parker as a head coach candidate?
Well, and my point was going to be, he doesn't have a lot of experience as a coordinator. But again, he's, got the connections to this program, and you have to believe that the word of people who knew him, who
Right.
both worked there, went a long way. And if you want to, mock that and say, well, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I mean, shocker, that's the world. The world ain't fair. It's more, it's more about what's feasible than what's fair, I always say. And this is still Troy. It's not like he's taking over a Power 5 program. He's going to Troy, and he's going to get a chance to be a head coach at a good, mid-level type program. But he's not going to the Power 5. He's going to have a chance to prove himself as a head coach, and then potentially, move up the ladder in a few years. We'll see. We'll see how it works out for him. Good luck to him, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. No question.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. A lot of good stuff, as always. Appreciate everybody being here. I've been getting, some different texts from different people, and, the Brian being one of them as well. He's got some stuff that he was texting me. But also this whole Lauren Landau thing, apparently from someone I know out there in the Denver area, Denver Bronco fan, he was a pretty popular guy out
Okay.
there.
Well,
So
Sean's sources say it's okay.
We'll see.
That's okay by me.
That's right. We shall see. We shall see.
Yeah, we will.
All right. Well, have a good night. Hit the like button for us if you would. We do appreciate it. I can't believe we're a week away from Christmas, by the way, Vince.
Not in any way prepared for that whatsoever.
We've got a busy day tomorrow. We'll be over at Notre Dame. We will be watching practice. We will be talking about that on this practice tomorrow. Of course, we will do that. We'll have rapid fire. We're going to be able to talk to some players out there tomorrow as well.
You're going to be busy. You're going to be busy.
I know. And then Wednesday is signing day. So we've just got a ton of stuff going on. But thanks for being here. Hit the like button. And of course, your friendly reminder to subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platforms. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.